meeting of the Bedford Charter Township Planning Commission to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first thing we'll need to do is have a motion for a temporary secretary tonight.
Motion for Commissioner Brown to be the tentative secretary for the meeting.
Okay.
All right. And let's just do a voice vote on that, Claudia.
How do I do that?
So just all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then all opposed?
All opposed?
Seeing none,
None.
motion carries.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and do roll call, please.
So just go off the list, right?
Yep, we got right up. Yep, number 2 up there.
Stacy Greenwood,
Here.
Claudia Brown, yes. Barb Jones. Sherry Tuggle, absent. Tony Walters, absent. Kevin Williston,
Here.
Mike Stipe.
Here. I'll let the absence report know that Tanya did reach out to me and let me know that she was not here. I did not hear from Barb or Shirley. Next item on the agenda is going to be approval of the January 28th, 2025 agenda. Do I have a motion?
All motion.
Support.
Any discussion on the agenda?
I have a question just regarding the annual report because it had already been sent over to the board. Is this just discussion and going over it with the PC?
Yes. There's no change in the document that was presented to you guys.
Okay.
If that is what the clarification.
Yes.
Yes, correct. Yep. It's just the first meeting we've had. We did that. The board had their meeting before, but yes, just discussion. If there is any other discussion on the agenda?
No.
Okay, roll call on that, please.
Kevin Williston,
Yes.
Stacy Greenwood, yes. Mike Stipe,
Yes,
Claudia Brown, yes.
thank you.
4 yes.
Motion carried.
Motion carries.
Right, next item on the agenda, if I'm going too fast, Claudia, just tell me to slow down. Is approval of the November 19th, 2024 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support? Any discussion on those minutes? That was a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions on that?
No.
Okay. Everybody good there?
Yes.
Okay. Seeing no discussion, roll call on that, please.
Stacy Greenwood,
Yes.
Kevin Williston,
Yes.
Claudia Brown, yes. Mike Stipe.
Yes,
Motion carries. 4 yes.
thank you. Next item on the agenda, is just going to be, chairperson address. We normally don't have one of those on there, but there's been a lot that has gone on between the last time we were here and, together. We've had, the pre-PC meeting, which we'll discuss, in just a little bit when we get down on the agenda. We've also, had the zoning ordinance finally adopted by the board after their second read. There were a couple of amendments to that zoning ordinance. I'm sure Trustee Greenwood will touch on those in her liaison report. But that did finally go into effect and that has been published. So congratulations to everybody. I wish the full team was here. But, so that was a very big thing that happened at the January meeting, on their second read. Like I said, just a couple of amendments. You've got your new copy, of the zoning ordinance, the one that was adopted in the fancy binders there. So, Barry had it printed off on some very nice paper and had it binded up for us, so take good care of that. That's really all I have as far as that goes. Next item on the agenda is going to be public comment time. That's going to be on agenda items only. We'll open that at 6:11. Right, seeing no public comment time for agenda items only, we'll close that at 6:11. Next item on the agenda is going to be our liaison report from trustee Greenwood.
As the chairman stated, the zoning ordinance was approved. The only thing that was amended, it was a technicality for the outdoor grows that currently were license holders. So we added language in there. And then the annual report was, presented to the board, which we will go over later. And other than that, I have nothing to add.
All right, thank you. Anybody have any questions on the amendments that were made?
No.
It was just a formality of putting a date in there, a cutoff date for the outdoors that she was referencing. There's Barb. Next item on the agenda is going to be our zoning report from the building and zoning administrator, Cody. He did go ahead and put that into our packet. Cody, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, not really.
At this time? Okay.
Can't wrap my head around the new zoning ordinance. You guys had to change all the case numbers and everything that I had memorized and
Right.
all the questions.
That's a good problem to have,
It is.
right?
It is.
Or we hope so. Has there been anybody calling and asking about the new zoning ordinance in particular, or
Not really in particular.
Okay. just general question?
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. All right, next item on the agenda is going to be discussion of new business. First thing we need to do is going to be the appointment of our officers. Oh, did you? We'll see her shortly. Oh, my God. No problem. We'll just keep trucking right along here.
Okay.
Do I have a motion for the officers?
Motion for, Mike Stive to continue as chair, Kevin Billison as vice chair, and Shirley Tuttle as secretary.
I'll second.
Any discussion on that amongst the group? So I did reach out to Shirley a couple days ago, and she did say that she would stay on as the secretary.
Good, because she's gonna be voting.
Right. Yeah. I just figured if she wasn't here, I put that up there.
She will be here, by the way. She's
Right.
late because of me.
So, and Kevin, you're sitting right next to me, so.
Are there any objections?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, I mean, there are none.
No.
Any more discussion on that? Okay, all right, let's do a roll call on that, please.
Okay. Barb Jones,
Yes.
Kevin Billison.
Yes.
Stacy Greenwood.
Yes.
Mike Stive,
Yes.
Buddy Brown, yes. 5 yes, motion carries.
All right, thank you. There. Next item on the agenda is going to be discussion of the 2024 Planning Commission Annual Report. That was enclosed in your packet. I did do a brief little presentation at the board meeting in December on that. I was not feeling my best that night, so I did not read the whole thing. But you know, it's just a summary of everything that we did last year. I guess if we wanted to discuss in particular, I guess the last part, the fiscal needs for 2025, that was the thing that I touched on the most in front of the board, for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's probably gonna be pretty important, moving along that, we have the access to the planners like we've had. The attorney obviously is, here at most of our meetings, especially when we need him. But I really just kind of wanted to hammer that point home in the sense that, with the new zoning ordinance, there's gonna be a lot of things, that are new. And we'll probably need to take a look at things. No document is perfect. And this one is vastly different from the old one. So I just kind of wanted to, make the board aware of that. I did touch on compensation on that. Just in the sense that, I don't think in saying this that I'm speaking out of turn here. The planning commission has definitely become different from when we all joined, right?
Absolutely.
Part of that is the workload with the master plan and the zoning ordinance, which we are now through. But it is my opinion, that moving forward, I think that there's gonna be just as much work to do.
Definitely.
I think that there'll be some more special land use requests. I'm not so sure that we won't have another solar application, at some point, just because that's kind of the way of the world. And then there's a lot of, different things now that we have a new zoning ordinance, there'll be a lot of, process and procedure stuff that we'll need to work with the zoning administrator with to, make sure that people are, getting the stuff they need, for us, so they can have their applications processed and whatnot. And just kind of setting up what we're looking for, moving forward, as far as, the big thing would be the annual review, for the marijuana, we've got to, as a group collectively, figure out what the process is gonna be, and I don't expect that to take, nearly as much effort as the zoning ordinance did, but, it is gonna be something that I think is gonna be, I think what you're seeing as far as the amount of hours you're having to put in is different probably the last 2 years than what it was,
Oh, absolutely.
and I expect that to continue. And I kind of touched on that with the board that, compensation is going to be key to keeping continuity with the group and, can't turn it into a, $20,000 a year job for all of us, then we don't want to do that. But I did touch on that when I gave the report. So I just wanted you guys to be aware of that.
We appreciate that.
Just so the board was kind of aware of what's going on. And I think, with constant communication between, us and the board with the liaison and whatnot, to show how much things have changed.
That's good.
I think that's
Excellent.
worth a conversation. Anybody have any questions about that annual report specifically?
So are you looking to discuss compensation at this meeting?
No, I don't think we need to discuss it at this current juncture. I just wanted the commission to know that I did make that a part of the annual report, and I did make that part of the presentation to the board. I would assume that would probably be a multifaceted, conversation with the board and you as the liaison kind of, guiding like the hours that we're doing and, discussion,
So,
unless you don't see it that way.
well, so I'm just looking at process.
Sure.
Are you looking at additional compensation for 2025?
I mean, I know that the budget can be amended, obviously. I think that it was important with the new zoning ordinance finally, getting out of the blocks and being adopted. I think that moving forward, it will be a conversation that we need to have. If that happens this year or next year, as we're working through this stuff. I think it's a conversation that the board needs to have amongst themselves. And I'm happy to, you know, communicate, you know, for the PC, or, you know, if you would rather do that, you know.
So the only issue that I have is that just procedurally, my recommendation moving forward would be to have the annual report reviewed by the PC. And that way you guys can discuss compensation before
Beforehand.
the budget meeting.
Okay.
And then there can be a presentation at the budget meeting. If we do that backwards, we're kind of, one, not giving the PC the opportunity to interject and state what they feel their value is.
Mhm.
And then the opportunity to advocate for the PC during the budget meeting, which would require additional discussion and an additional line item at the board level.
Okay.
So that would just be my recommendation. I'm not opposed to increased compensation.
Sure. But
just-
how we get there?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on that?
No.
Okay. Any more discussion on the annual report itself?
It looks really nice.
Good job. Yeah. Okay, next item on the agenda is gonna be, consideration of a firm for assistance with the application, for the solar farm. That is gonna be the next couple items in your packet. So Cody worked really hard, a couple of drafts, to get the RFP out. And enclosed in your packet were, I think, 13 firms that we did send it out to. We heard back from 2. And I believe Cody had a conversation with another firm, and the timeline that we were looking at just wasn't gonna work for them, so they decided not to put anything, give a response. So we have a proposal from the McKenna Group, and then we have a proposal from the Whiteman Group. Those are both in your packet. Stacy, I just have a quick question, though. Did you and I kind of talked about, you'd be advocating for the PC at the board level. Did you want to be involved in the discussion here, or? I don't think it's a problem if you are, by the way.
I think I just have a couple interjections.
Okay, I just wanted to, before we got going. Would you like to start with, I guess, if you had anything that you wanted to add?
Yes, so, before we do this, let's discuss the resolution that the board had regarding the escrow fee.
Okay,
Is everyone on the planning commission aware of the resolution for the escrow?
No.
No.
Okay, so we had a resolution in November for the escrow fee, which is at $12,000. If the balance falls below 5, it has to be replenished within 30 days. So with that being said, my question would be, the process of how they're going to go and what that's going to look like, so we can keep, the applicant updated. Because once it dips below 5, everything stops, and we don't want that to happen. So we want to make sure that statements of expenditures are current at all times.
okay,
And that we are adhering to that. It also allows the planning commission to make a decision without going to the board level, so that skips a step.
okay,
So essentially what we did is we approved the planning commission to send out the RFP for a planning consultant, an engineer, any additional services. the escrow fee is capped at 12. And then we start getting into expenditures for costs related to the project. And then the minimum, the initial deposit is 5,000. So my only concern with who we hire is the breakdown of how they're going to bill and just making sure that the applicant is aware at all times, because once that dips,
We're supposed to stop.
we're at a halt.
Right, so we're gonna. So neither firm necessarily spelled that out in their, I guess, application or, in the material they sent to us, which I'm not surprised about. But what you're saying is no matter which direction we go, we need to make sure that that is accounted for with them moving
Mhm.
forward. Okay.
Yes. And that doesn't mean that it's capped at 12. It just means that it needs to be replenished. So once it dips below 5, you keep replenishing until services are rendered. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah, so we're gonna need a timeline of, billing, how they're gonna bill on their deliverables, and then communicate that. You're gonna want that communicated to the applicant so that that can be replenished, so that we don't get below the 5 now.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else specifically technical wise that you wanted to?
Regarding the application,
Or just anything in general?
just the only questions I had were related to the escrow and just being mindful of the applicant. I see, parts where it says that the fees may vary.
Okay.
And, we saw that with McKenna.
Mhm.
We get a bid that's not set in stone, things change.
Yep.
So I kind of want to know a little bit more about what that looks like. And then there was also on the Whiteman proposal. Why don't you guys go ahead and come back to me and I'll
Okay,
find
yep.
it.
All right, so I think I know where you're going with that, Stacy. So I'm just gonna kind of go where I think you're gonna go, but if I don't get it,
Sure.
you just
Go ahead.
interrupt me.
Thank you.
So we've got the two proposals. They are both very thorough, in my opinion. If you take a look at both of them, had a cost analysis, if you will. One is vastly different than the other. I think it's like 11.8 for, the Whiteman Group. And I mean, if you add up all of the things in the, McKenna, I think it's like 27, or maybe it's even a little bit more than that. So there's definitely a discrepancy or a difference, I guess, in what they're proposing to charge as far as, what services they're gonna offer. For instance, if you just take a look at the environmental study review, I think it's $1,500 for the Whiteman Group, and it's 95 or 98 for the McKenna Group. Now McKenna is going to do the I guess the zoning part of that, and then like the review of the engineering services. They're gonna they have a firm that they work with, so it's gonna be farmed out.
Right.
The Whiteman Group seems to have all that on staff. So I will say, if you look at the cost summary on the bottom of the paragraph, the Whiteman Group is proposing a time and materials basis per their standards, rates, and fees, which they did enclose. They did enclose an estimate for 4 or 5 specific things. I guess what I don't necessarily like is, that last paragraph at the bottom, the above amounts are only estimates. Actual amounts invoiced will be based on the staff hours required to complete the task. If we believe it'll exceed the above total estimate, we'll notify the township, wait for approval to proceed with any additional work. I don't necessarily think that's a bad way to go, but I also don't think that the price you're looking at 11.8 is not going to be it's not going to be the final price.
Right,
In that paragraph, it also says it'll go, and then later.
Correct.
Won't be delayed.
Yes, so that also concerns me in the sense that, and I don't know, Seth, you would probably be able to best, maybe chime in here. It's not like, township approval, not like we have to have a meeting and discuss, approving more money, because it's all part of the same escrow fee. But I mean, I do think that could be a little bit difficult and, possibly cause some delays. I read the McKenna application there. I mean, they have put on there, their hourly rate, and then it's not to exceed a certain amount. So the way I read that, this is the services we're going to provide, and it's not going to exceed that amount. Now there is the language at the top that, if, the application, gets changed, or if the scope of the work changes drastically, then you have to revisit that. But even though it is more money on the McKenna side, I feel like that is, they've really laid out what the price is going to be for each thing, assuming that we don't stray from that. And I think the only way that we would stray from that is if the applicant, said, well, instead of 400 acres, we want to go to 1,000 acres or something like that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So you're changing the scope of the work, because it's a lot more.
Right.
I don't anticipate that happening. So the application we have, and that was online. I don't know if either one of these firms took a look at that. My sense is that McKenna may have, because theirs is a lot more, so we know the environmental study is 1,600 pages long.
Wow.
Their price for that's $9,500. The estimate from the Whiteman Group is, $1,500. So, I appreciate the estimates in both scenarios, but I feel like the McKenna estimate is worded differently and maybe closer to what reality is, as far as that goes, the hourly rate, and it's not to exceed. And then they provided what services they were going to do. How much it was to have the planners at each of the meetings, if we decided to do that. Coordinated through the zoning administrator is how they've worded that, which I don't think is a big deal. They have a gentleman that worked in Berry County, or has done a lot of different things as the lead on that. And then Kyle, who you guys remember from the zoning ordinance, is going to be the secondary. I don't necessarily know if he won't be the primary, because he was technically the secondary on the zoning ordinance. He was here all the time. So I don't think it makes a difference one way or the other. They both have very good credentials.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest difference in between the two is McKenna on the engineering side is going to use, that's going to be farmed out to an independent firm. And the Whiteman Group has their in-house.
The independent firm is being paid by them, correct?
I would assume, yes, correct, yeah. The other difference, the McKenna, in the top, I think it's on the first page. They basically say, if, the township would like a specific quote, like if we want to take something off of what we're quoted here, we can do that, and they're happy to resubmit a different price point. I would just, simply just as an example, I'm not suggesting that we do this at this particular point, but on the engineering review and services, I'm talking about the McKenna application. It's page 3 on their fee proposal. just the engineering services, so they're gonna review the site plan, grading plan, soil erosion, sediment control, decommissioning review, and environmental review. I mean, that's all, I mean, that's fine. That's great. The decommissioning review, I mean, I really think that is probably gonna be the attorneys more so than the engineering firm. My opinion, as far as that goes. So, I don't know if there's a situation where we say, or if we can say, if this is like an all or nothing type of deal where, we can say, well, we don't need you to, do the decommissioning review. Also reviewing of the site plan, McKenna's going to do that. Our attorney's office are going to do that. We're going to do that. Although that may be relevant for their environmental study review, I guess. And then down there, you have C, the electrical review of proposed project.
Mhm.
I don't, from a planning commission standpoint,
Wow.
I'm not so sure that is, necessarily relevant to us. That's like a mechanical inspectors type of thing. I mean, yes, in the packet that we have from the applicant, they do show the wires and how all that's going to do, but I'm not so sure that that's necessarily under our purview per se. Like if the electrical inspector were to want that, that would be with something, I don't know. I'm just kind of talking here, but so that's $8,000.
Yeah.
And then you have the, archaeological, cultural, historic review of the proposed project, for $4,400. I'm not saying that we don't do that, but those are two big differences between the two proposals, which is
Mhm.
about $12,000, or a little over that. And McKenna gives the indication in their wording in the contract that if we decided to strike that, we don't have to have that done. Any thoughts on that? Did I go where you were going or not? No?
You did.
Okay.
I just wanted to add, may I add to
Yes,
it?
please.
So looking at the fine print on the contract, the difference I found between McKenna and the Whiteman Group is record retention. With McKenna, we retain ownership of the record. With Whiteman, they do and will provide to the chair at reasonable times. I don't feel that's appropriate. If we're paying for a service that's being done, to put a plan together, we should have ownership and record retention.
So I would agree 100% with that, and to kind of to piggyback off of that, earlier in the Whiteman, they described like what the process was going to be, and they're like, well, we'll meet with the applicant and the engineer, and then we'll report back to you. I didn't necessarily like that for the, kind of the same thing, like, like this is our rodeo, there were a couple times where, and I mean, maybe that's just basic contract language as far as that goes, but, and I'm not saying that they can't meet without the applicant, but I mean, they're being hired to assist us at the meetings and go through the stuff.
Yes.
So,
They also have a clause on number 19 regarding termination. Consultant may terminate this agreement for convenience by written notice. So at any point in time,
they decide they want out.
they can back out,
Okay.
which would stall the project.
People looking back out.
Yeah, there's the clause they have in there.
They can terminate the agreement for convenience by written notice to the client. And in such event, the consultant shall be paid only for all work under the agreement that the consultant has completed to date.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like that any more than.
I did not
anybody.
see that part of McKenna. So, I mean, with McKenna, it looks like a full commitment.
Yes, I would agree.
With Whiteman, it looks like a commitment with fine print conditions that I think the PC should take into consideration at the very least.
I would agree. Did anybody else have any other discussion, like questions or concerns? Claudia, I know you do.
Right. One of the things that I was looking at that kind of stood out to me when I went through this is that Whiteman has worked with consumers and the other energy companies. And my thought with that is that they know the process. Nothing's going to jump out, surprise them that can't be handled to make it run smoothly. They they know the system, they know how this works.
Right.
Which I thought would be beneficial
Mhm.
in making things run smoothly. That was one of the things that stood out to me.
I would agree with that. I also, though, would, possibly view that as a conflict of interest.
Right, right.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I think each firm would do a great job. I think that the McKenna Group is more geared towards the ordinance itself. And, because that's what they do. Like they
Right.
plan, they write ordinances and stuff. And that's really what our role here is,
Mhm.
is to take our solar ordinance and apply it to this special land use application. And I think that is a huge beneficial thing to have, the planner. I mean, both places can, have planners and everything else, but I feel like it's just my personal opinion. And I think it's a little bit, that McKenna's a little bit more geared towards what our needs are going to be.
Because the zoning and the,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you wanted to add, Claudia?
I don't think so.
Barb, do you have any
Well,
concerns?
I guess I do
Okay.
have concerns, but I don't know if it's in this section of our discussion. All of the decommissioning that happens, possibly in 30, 35 years. I have questions about that,
Okay.
we
We're
can-
gonna talk about that, the
Yeah.
application here as the next thing. So,
Yeah,
is there any concerns that you have specifically about either one of these
no,
applicants?
not really. Mhm.
Shirley, do you have any?
No.
Okay. Kevin, do you have any other concerns? Stacy, do you have anything else that you'd like to add? Seeing no more discussion on that, I would like to make a motion to choose the McKenna Group as our planning engineering consultant firm that is going to help us with the processing of the solar application.
I'll second.
So discussion on that, are you looking to pick apart at this moment in time the services that you feel we are going to need and that we won't need? To get a rough cost estimate, or how is that going to work?
I think that we should, yes.
Okay.
And I would only think that we would probably do that after we've decided that I guess.
Can do a secondary motion.
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
So we're looking at McKenna.
Yes. Does anybody have a problem? Steph, actually, I'd like to ask you a question. So you've been a part of several of these. I mean, so we're talking about the McKenna proposal here. The archaeological and the electrical review. I mean, I know that is standard, but I mean, on the planning commission level, is that
I think it go both ways.
okay?
Okay,
All right.
some township planning commissions want information, but sometimes, like you said, the information is maybe more specific for the electrical inspectors, which their inspectors are gonna do anyway, on site.
Right.
Archaeology, you see, every property is gonna be different, like every site property, so like when they go and research that, like, I don't know if there's wetlands, if there's endangered, like, things like that. Like,
Okay.
that they have to research, that's probably why it's in there.
Okay.
You know, a lot of times, first, either firm is, you know, qualified.
Right.
Okay, you know, specifically with this kind of, I do like how you have the records, because if there's ever a FOIA request, it's at the township, you know, hall, you don't have to go off site for it. Pride and Newhouse, that's their contractor that I saw, they're fantastic.
Okay.
The engineer in that, Tom Lee, he's been around for a while, and, he does a lot of municipalities in the area, so I think you're gonna get good representation there. There was one that jumped out at me, and Mike, I think you said it, that you weren't sure whether or not it was relevant. Like the history of the project site, was that?
So I,
$4,500 or something?
so the archaeological, the 40 was 4,400. And then, you know, like the engineering review of the environmental, you know, it had the decommissioning review on there and stuff, you know, like I didn't necessarily know that, you know, I mean, I don't have a problem with an engineer taking a look at that. But I mean, in my thinking is that is the PC, the attorney, and you know, you're picking that apart because that's a zoning, that's in the zoning ordinance itself.
I'm gonna want the engineer to look at decommissioning.
Okay, are you? Okay.
Absolutely, 100%. They
All right.
will, consumers will give them their estimates, and, you know, we're gonna get whatever it is, but we need our engineers to confirm that.
Okay, all right.
Okay, but, so there are aspects of that I want them to look at.
Okay,
Generally speaking, we want the zoning review too, though. I think that's,
right.
you know, that's what these reviews are focused on. And yeah, there's gonna be costs, from what I'm hearing, I mean, you know, I've done with projects where, you know, the escrow is, you know, double what they kind of quote it for various reasons. I don't think this one would go that way. Okay,
Right.
But, you know, these numbers I don't think should be anything, you know, out of line for what you've seen probably, you know, at consumers.
Okay,
And they're paying for, you know, for the review. So, and they're capped, you know, it just means they're not gonna exceed certain numbers.
right.
I'm not expecting a site plan amendment or something like that that would materially alter the review of the planner or something.
And I don't think so either. And that's kind of why, I think that this is the route to go. So that being said, so I had some questions about whether or not we wanted to amend that you know, ask them to propose a different, you know, fee for, you know, A through D down there on the engineering review
I
services.
think we should.
Seth has brought up a very good point about that we need them to do that. So I don't necessarily feel as strongly about that. I mean, does anybody else have, you know, something that they want to look at there? There's very, very little, I guess, overlap, you know, but if you take a look at the McKenna services that they're going to offer up there on this, you know, number 3, decommissioning and land reclamation plan. So, you know, everybody's going to be looking at it. But Seth made a very compelling reason why you have to have each entity look at it for different reasons. The engineering side is the engineering side, and the planning side is the planning side with the zoning ordinance. So,
I also think, Mike, see, right now, if you're going through and trying to parse out, like, okay, what they'll we want, but maybe there are aspects of that we do want. Because the
Sure.
planner didn't get an opportunity to review the application.
okay,
So the more familiar they get with it, you know, you could say whoever your contact is in the kind of file, for example.
right,
If you see something that you don't think we're gonna, you know, need, kind of let us know, so the applicant has a better idea of what, you know, what the cost is. But I don't know if you want to eliminate
Yeah.
certain aspects of the.
right at this time. Okay,
You might need it depending on what, you know, how they describe it and what's in that scope of that service.
okay, all right. Does anybody have? So I've been swayed to change my opinion about taking something out right this second. Does anybody? Are we all in agreement with that? You know, we looked at the cost of each one. We kind of decided what we think we want to do. You know, we went into the motion for discussion thinking that maybe we would do a secondary motion to, you know, take something out or ask for a different quote. I'm not feeling like that is a direction we want to go right now.
I would say no.
I just have a question on.
Yep.
Seth is considered the use variance review. I mean, I don't see anything
Yeah, I see.
impeding the process.
Because we can't get use variances anyway. Townships we don't grant use variances. But I don't think they'd be asking for use variance either. Because an allowed use of a special land district in that zoning district.
So is that something that we?
Yeah, that's how I interpret like use variance, and I don't know what we kind of mean by that necessarily.
Yeah,
Like,
that's my question.
Yeah, on the plain side, they would know what a use variance is. They would know that townships don't,
Good.
have one, but.
Could you consider that, a use variant, a specific, to like a setback in particular, like the inverter?
For use?
Yeah.
So
Or you get what I'm saying? Like,
I interpret use variances, you have your list of permitted or special land.
okay,
I want to do something that's not listed as special land. I go to the ZBA and ask I want to be able to do this. Give me a variance from your ordinance of uses.
okay,
And that's what's not allowed in the township.
okay.
So, how they interpret that, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Like, if they're referring to something else.
So what I'm specifically thinking of, and we'll get into it, but there is some question about one of the inverters on there and whether or not they need to get a variance to meet the 800-foot setback. But we have the waiver in our zoning ordinance that allows the planning commission to probably handle that. But I guess that's what I was thinking of. Like, I understand, the use, we're talking about a use,
Yeah.
but
But yeah, that'd be more dimensional variance.
okay, all right.
And maybe that's their interpretation. That's what, what I mean? That's what I'm not sure of.
Okay.
How they interpret that.
Stacy, where did you see that at? Just on the
33.
33.
For $1,000.
Well, I don't know. Maybe we're thinking too hard here on this. So like their quote is not to exceed. So, I mean, I don't think it would be out of bounds if we select them and then say, all right, well, we don't need these services at that point because they're quoting us on a not to exceed basis anyway. Unless you feel strongly the other direction on that and you want to strike the use.
So the contract allows us to approve and strike later?
I believe it was in their opening paragraph all the way at the front. They had just said that they, find it for you.
Second paragraph where it says no.
Yeah, so no, McKenna is happy to discuss the below level of services proposed for the unique project within Bedford Township. Should the township deem any of the proposed services indicated below not to be required, our team can adjust the proposal to better meet the needs of the community.
Perfect.
So to me, we, as we go along and we, and I think that works both ways. We may go along and say, well, hold on. We actually would like X, Y, and Z to be reviewed, and it's not part of the original contract. That's why they enclose those hourly rates for us to look at, so that you kind of have a rough idea of, like if you venture off the reservation, that's big, might cost this much.
Okay, perfect.
Is there any more discussion on the motion that is in front of us to select the McKenna Group to help us with this application? Sonia? Any other discussion you,
No, I think I'm all set.
on McKenna?
Mm-hmm.
Barb?
I'm okay.
Shirley?
Okay.
Kevin?
Yes.
And Stacy, are you okay with the conclusion we came to there on the fees?
I am. I would like to make a secondary motion with a fee schedule proposal added to this.
Okay,
You make a friendly amendment or separate motion?
What are
A
we doing?
secondary motion, to request a fee schedule to be included in the proposal.
Second that.
Is that,
all right, so discussion on the secondary motion. So, trustee Greenwood has motioned that she would like a fee schedule, sorry, drawing a blank there. A fee schedule attached to this proposal. Is there any discussion on that?
No.
Okay, let's just do a voice vote on that.
you ready?
The secondary or the?
The second,
First.
so we'll do the second, we have to do the secondary first.
Right.
And then,
Before you do the main.
correct,
Okay. Commissioners Brown,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Valison,
Yes.
Tuggle, trustee Stacy,
Yes.
Mike.
yeah.
Okay. You have 6 voting in the affirmative. That motion carries.
All right, and then
Secondary.
back to the first motion. To select the McKenna Group with the fee schedule attached to the proposal
Okay.
to help us with the RFP, or excuse me, to help us with the solar application. And that was seconded by Brown and motioned by me. So roll call on that, please.
Right. Commissioners, Brown,
Yes.
Valison,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Tuggle, yes. Trustee Stacy
Yes.
and Mike Stan.
Yes.
Affirmative 6. Motion is affirmed.
And just to confirm, so Stacey, that is gonna go on the February agenda, or do we not? We don't necessarily have to do that because of that escrow resolution.
No, I think it would just be,
That was what your point was
it would-
earlier.
yeah,
Correct.
advantageous if Cody could reach out to them and make sure that we have that available, so nothing falls behind.
Okay.
Yeah. Not to commit you to doing that, Cody, are you okay with doing
You start sending them all the, yeah.
Cody, I can help you with that too. And we'll figure out how to communicate with them on the fee structure and communicate that back to the applicant. Okay, all right. Next on that, item on the agenda is gonna be our first discussion of the consumer's energy solar application. So we've had quite some time to look at this. We did have some questions that were submitted. I did print off a copy, so we did have the pre-PC meeting with them on the 13th. Myself, Seth was there, Cody was there, and Jerry was in attendance. For most of the meeting, he had to step out at the end. We went ahead and Seth took just some general notes of the meeting. I went ahead and enclosed that, and Cody, print off a copy of that for you. So we basically discussed several things. There were a few specific questions that we found regarding like the decommissioning and some concerns on the bond and stuff, that they're gonna, get back to us on. But we mainly discussed the timeline. In your application, they were, hoping to start construction, I think it was May 1st. in the application. They, they'd indicated they would like to do that a little bit sooner than May 1st. So it just means that we, need to kind of be mindful of the timeline, and just kind of try and keep things moving along. One of the reasons why, Trustee Greenfield rightfully brought up the escrow fee, because, theoretically, once that gets down to the 5,000, we're supposed to stop. And I have every bit of confidence that they will keep that thing above 5,000 so that we can continue to move forward. So the biggest takeaway there is that we need to have them come in and do a presentation for us before we even think about doing a public hearing.
Right.
Tentatively, we discussed, February 25th being a day that we would do that. Down on the agenda, the next thing we're gonna do is, possibly set a special meeting date for that. But we were thinking sometime around there that kind of works for everybody's schedule. If they were gonna come in, they've indicated that they're gonna give a PowerPoint presentation, 15 to 20 minutes type situation, and then start, fielding questions that we may or may not have that we would like to get some clarification on before we set the public hearing. That's also going to give the public an opportunity to see their presentation and voice comments, questions, concerns to us. And then they'll have the same opportunity again at the public hearing. So the public is getting several opportunities to, if they have questions, ask them, and then we can, help facilitate those answers as far as that goes. We had quite a few questions submitted to Claudia. And then I had some other ones. Does anybody have anything that they would, so the process that we discussed in that pre-PC meeting was that we were going to try and get a lot of our generalized questions typed up and submitted to them so that they could come to that presentation meeting prepared with what those, are. Does anybody necessarily have a problem with that process that we're kind of thinking of,
No, it's not at all. More
and
efficient.
we will probably make those, I don't think we probably will. We will make those part of the packet, so there'll be, a record, because if we're gonna, ask those questions. But I thought it would be beneficial for them to have those going in so that, we can be as productive and efficient as possible with, getting answers to the questions that we're gonna have, rather than trying to do that right after their presentation, when they could have brought some materials to us or whatever the case was at that, meeting and whatnot. Does anybody have anything that they would like to add to that list specifically right now?
So the question that we get a lot from the public, and I believe it's on the Johnstown side, was that it was previously a brownfield site. And so the public has been asking about, putting solar panels there. I don't believe that's part of the Bedford application.
It is not.
So I think that needs to be clarified.
That was something that we did indicate to them at the meeting. I have all the questions that I had submitted and the ones that we had there. If you want, I can read them aloud now, or, we can just make them part of our, packet or the meeting minutes moving forward.
I just know, from speaking with residents, that's their concern, and misinformation regarding, what happened with that parcel.
Yep.
If it's on the Bedford side, if it's not on the Bedford side, if it would be affected, et cetera.
Yeah, so that was something that we did touch on with them. And I believe it's Mr. Lawson that is going to do the presentation, and he did specifically ask, are you going to want us to touch on that? And then, the environmental study portion that pertains to that.
Okay.
And I did tell him that, yes, I guess, be prepared for that. It is not on the Bedford side, but, I agree with you. That needs to just be explained in the meeting, at the time of the presentation, just so that there are, because I mean, there are concerns, because the wetlands are so close that you could have, some kind of contamination or whatever. So yes, that is, an issue that they are aware of that they will need to address at that time. Is there anything else specifically that you guys would like me to ask? So I can give you some general ideas of some questions that we asked them. Like I said, we found a couple of things that we were concerned about the decommissioning plan. There was a couple of questions I had pertaining to the landscaping plan, especially around the two residential houses that are there. So they're aware that they're gonna, come up with something to appease us, I guess, as far as that goes. They did indicate that they are gonna do the 4-foot berm in those trees. They were not excited about it, but they are gonna do that there. And then we talked quite a bit about, I guess the planning commission is going to need, so if you take a look at your site plan that you have in your application, they have the plantings around the Banfield Road side in particular. The rest of it is, dense forest. So we're gonna need to, with the help of the attorney's office, exercise, we're gonna need to waive the landscape requirement, on the, certain areas where we're gonna consider that a dense forest.
Okay.
So like, the Collier side, there was a little question on the baseline side that I was like, well, I don't know if I call that a dense forest. So they were gonna look into, what they were gonna do for, I think it was less than 200 feet there. So that is just something that, they're gonna want us to do that, and we're gonna need to go through that process, in our fact finding and stuff. We talked about the truck line. They've indicated, the transportation plan that they have in there is what they are going to do. So that, all the traffic is gonna basically come up 37 and then go down Banfield.
Okay.
And then they're gonna have access there, as far as that goes to get into their
So that's
field.
gonna be where they go in at. That's gonna be the only entrance.
Yes, that's what they've indicated. Yep. So the transportation plan that you have in the packet shows the one driveway for access to the Bedford site. Now I know it does get a little confusing because, that's the transportation plan for the whole project. So they show you where they're going to go in, for the Johnstown portion or whatever. But for our portion, it's just, going to be 37 to Banfield.
My dad did hear from, County Road.
Okay.
They have been in contact with.
All right, so that was gonna be the next thing out of my mouth is that, we did, per our ordinance, the county has to be looped in on the road. And I did in the meeting say that, have you guys traveled that road recently? Cause there's a dozen basketball sized potholes there that I don't think, I wouldn't want to drive my semi truck loaded with that over there. So sounds like they're in contact or have been in contact. That is not necessarily something that we have to worry about per se. That's the county road department's situation, but I mean, it is part of the zoning ordinance of, the road be maintained.
Right.
However that's gonna be.
Right.
So I would imagine, Seth, that we'll get some details on what their plan is gonna be on that, and that'll also be part of, a fact finding, if you will. And then there was, a lot of other just general questions and stuff. Barb, you said you had some questions.
Yeah, I've got to revise my thoughts on that decommissioning part, but I do have another, question. All the trees that are going to be removed, are they a specific type of tree that we could somehow get revenue for if there's a couple of semis or?
So they're logging it.
Yeah, I just wondered if that was something that
So
could benefit our township in some way.
So it's their property, so they'll get to keep the money from any timber that's harvested. I did not I did, I know, right.
Good thought.
It did not look like from the site plan that was submitted, it did not look like they were gonna be very aggressive on our side of the project
Okay.
with taking timber out, from what I could tell. That is something that is on my list to confirm during the presentation. I'm sure they are gonna have to do some trimming and some removing, especially where the field comes to the forest.
Right.
But I do not, their site plan does not indicate that they're gonna clear right up to 300 foot where the setback is. But that is a question we can ask them at the time of presentation.
Okay.
But they are their trees so far. So they're
That's right.
Kevin, did you have any, Barb, I'm sorry, did you have anything
No.
else
I'm gonna
specifically?
hold off.
Okay. And the only reason I'm asking guys is I want to try and have the most comprehensive list that we can have for their presentation so that they are able to give us answers to whatever questions we may or may not have. Doesn't mean they're going to be happy with the answer they have to give or we're going to be happy, but I mean,
Right.
the point is I want them to be able to answer your question at the time of presentation.
Right, so we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that doesn't mean that you can't have a question that's not submitted beforehand either.
Okay.
But I just thought if there was something that you noticed in the application already. Kevin, Jason, do you have any immediate concerns other than that one?
No.
So I guess just to touch basically, on kind of what we discussed with them at that pre-PC meeting. We're looking at sometime in February, presentation, which will be a special meeting. And then we are gonna do, if we are, happy and satisfied at that time, at that meeting, we could have a motion and set for public hearing at that time. If we're comfortable as a group with what we've gotten back. Doesn't mean that we can't, have other stuff at the public hearing, presented to us as far as, questions follow-up questions or something like that.
Okay.
But we were thinking that last week in March, if we were good to go, the planner could, do their review. We're happy with the engineering reports and everything else. That is probably the biggest change that came out of that meeting was that, they'd indicated, the sooner the better as far as their construction is going, to get started. So in the RFP, we said, May 1st.
Right.
Yes, that's about 30 days or so ahead of that. So we will need to communicate that with the planner and the engineering services folks, but I feel like 60 days is enough time for them to get us whatever reviews we need done.
And you can start that process immediately.
Yes. So they'll get it even a little bit more than the 60 days. Yeah. But that is the biggest kind of change, I guess, from what you've read in your packet. It was May 1st. We're thinking that, it could be a little bit before that. We will not rush it. If we have questions or we need to wait on reports or whatever the case is, we will, take our time. But I just wanted to kind of point that out to you guys that, that is certainly a possibility if everyone feels like it's appropriate at the time of that presentation for the, at that February meeting.
What is the date of the February meeting?
Well, we haven't set one.
Okay, that's what I thought.
We'll get there in just a minute, but I mean, the tentative proposed timeline was, they would do, a presentation on the 25th and then, provided, where we were at in our process, if we hadn't, if everyone was happy with what we'd gotten back, we might set for a public hearing, for the end of March at that meeting. Or we can have a special meeting and post for the public hearing, a couple of weeks later if we get stuff back or, it's really where we're at in that process at that time.
So for the special meeting, since they're doing a presentation, the PowerPoint presentation, and obviously we're gonna have questions. the public will have questions. Do you plan on using the same order of agenda? Or more of a public forum, question, answer?
So we did talk about that briefly in the PC, pre-PC meeting. Consumers had kind of indicated that they would like, and I think it's probably not knowing how much community interaction we're gonna have.
Sure.
I feel like it may be best to stick to our general format that we have and have the questions directed to us. And then, as a group, we just need to make sure that, as these questions are coming to us at the podium, we make sure that we're, in our discussion, asking those questions of consumers.
Okay.
That way, we're alleviating the back and forth that will inevitably happen. And,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
if it's just two or three, 2 to 10 people in the room, that would be one thing, but you have no idea. So, my thinking is that we would stick to the general format to make sure that we're
That's what I was thinking.
okay.
It can get out of control very quickly.
Sure. Now that being said, if we have, a ton of people and we have a lot of questions, we certainly can, as the chair, we can give latitude to make sure that if they have questions that are relevant, get them asked so that we can ask them, we don't necessarily have to stick to that 3 minutes that we don't want to stifle anyone's ability if they have questions, so, but we'll just kind of play that by ear. And we've done that before where we've, had, the future land use map, was a pretty big crowd and we had to make some modifications there, but I would think that we would stick with the format that has worked best for us. If everyone's okay with that.
My quick comment.
Yeah.
So I heard, the planning commission mention that you're gonna reach out to McKenna to, to the timeline of when to get. So if you're looking at a late March, public hearing, for their timeline, try to get them maybe 2 to 3 weeks before the public hearing, because I'm gonna guess whatever they review, they're probably gonna ask for some supplemental information from consumers. I'm not criticizing, your application, but that's how it works, right? So I want them to be able to have the opportunity to get you that information so they can update the commission and the public at the public hearing. That when we do that, that sort of makes the process more efficient.
Okay, yeah, we will be sure to communicate that expectation with them. And that kind of goes along with why we're going to try and submit as many of the questions beforehand of that presentation so that, hopefully, a lot of the answers can be flushed out both on their end, our end, and then the planner's end as well. Steph, anything else?
No, I have some maybe suggested questions, but I think what I'll do is think about that more and shoot it out in an email maybe tomorrow.
Okay.
It's not anything out of left field, it's in line with what
Sure.
we're discussing.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns on that? Just the general discussion on that application?
No.
Okay. All right. Next item is going to be set special meeting date for the consumer with energy presentation of the solar farm application. So I will make a motion to set that date for Tuesday, February 25th at 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Let's start 6 p.m.
The one I had was thinking, well, we used to have meetings at 6:30, I thought it was early.
Oh, it's me, a new computer I can't turn on.
Do I have is there a second?
I'll second.
And discussion on that, is that okay with everybody? I picked a Tuesday.
Can we do it earlier or do we have to wait till then?
Say again?
Can we do that earlier or do we have to wait until the 25th? Can we move it up?
Well, we can't set it up and move it up after we've made a motion to set that. I mean, if,
Plus, we kind of has to do their informational.
Yeah. I kind of thought in talking with Consumers Energy and the attorney's office and knowing kind of how it works with the planners, that the 25th would be the earliest
Mm,
we would
Okay.
want to do that.
Right, gives everybody time to
Correct.
do their own thing.
Is there any discussion? Stacy, does that,
No,
Hey.
that sounds great.
Kevin? All right, seeing no more discussion on that motion, can we have a roll call date or roll call vote for that, please?
Okay. Commissioner Kevin Dallison,
Yes.
Claudia Brown,
Yes.
Robert Jones. Yeah. Charlie Tuggle, yes. Trustee Stacy
Yes.
and Chairman Mike Staff.
Yes.
We have 6 positive quorum, motion passes.
All right, thank you, Shirley. All right, and just that's why I'm thinking about it. So because that is a special meeting, we will need to post that the 15 days prior.
It's 18 hours, but how about we just get it done as soon as we can?
Correct, yes. No, that's exactly where I was going with that. But we'll need to do a specific posting. Now, will we need to run that in the? Okay,
Not a public hearing, so post it at the township hall.
Okay.
And on the township's website, and I think the township may run a Facebook page, I'm not sure.
Yep.
But we'll have it on there too then.
okay. Right, and we can do that immediately, correct?
Yep.
Okay. That is one of the reasons why we chose to put it out a little bit further so that we could get the information out there and everyone can
Advertise
have
it
the
a
opportunity
little
to
more.
get in there. All right. Next item on the agenda is open public comment time. This can be about anything you'd like. We'll open that up at 7:22.
Tom Sproul, I'm from the township, so my only comment is, we talk about having more meetings. I sit here and listen to this one tonight, and when you guys are talking to each other in here, the people out here aren't gonna be able to hear you. The same problem we got with the board meetings. So, unless you get a better audio system in here for when you have your open meetings and stuff, or the people aren't gonna understand what you're saying. And you have an open public comment time for a reason. To ask the public what they're doing or what their interest. But if we can't hear what you guys are saying or discussing, we cannot ask intelligent questions. So that's my only comment. This is my first time here for a long time, but, I guess I didn't realize the meeting part like that with the board and talking in is just as bad here as it is at a board meeting. You know, so I don't know, but I'm gonna be pushing some of them to spend a few bucks and get some kind of an audio system. And you got 2 tables now instead of just one, so they needed it both for discussion. That's
So-
all I have to say.
So you mean
Thank you.
like microphones at each spot or something, or?
Well, I think they've tried that, and they tried that, and they tried to pass it. I don't know, there's gotta be something out there that's better than what we got. I mean, I'm not trying to be real critical, but we can't ask, you want public to come, you want them to be informed, and then you ask them for questions. Well, if we can't hear what the discussion is, you're not gonna get that many questions. You know, I mean, when I sat up there, my voice probably carried with or without a mic, so I didn't have a problem. So, you know,
It did.
all right.
Thank you.
Good evening, Greg Moore, Community Affairs Manager with Consumers Energy. First of all, thank you for moving the process forward. We appreciate you taking the next step. And I will say, something I think made the point about, we want to make sure when McKenna comes back, And we believe fully if they're gonna, you're gonna pay them what you're gonna pay them to do this, they're gonna have questions or issues that come up. So we're gonna want to know what those are so that we can respond appropriately, both for you and for the public, because, we have no interest in not providing you the information. We want to make sure that you have everything you need and everything you want to make sure you are comfortable with the decisions you're gonna make going forward, because we don't want to see the process slow down. And Sherwin was exactly right. We're under a pretty tight timeline. We'll actually see construction start on this project before your approvals come. It will start across the border in Berry County. We've already got all of our permissions and everything we need, except for a couple permitting issues. So you'll start to see perhaps in the next 30 days or sooner, depending on what the weather does, trees will start to be cleared on our property. So stuff will start to happen. The other concern, and it's, it should never be about the money, but it's been made clear to us that the township has a strong interest in getting in line for the state funding. And my concern is we've already had 3 rounds of funding. There was $30 million set aside for the Renewable Ready Communities funding. Some additional funding was added from the federal government. I don't know if it was 20 million or additional 30 million. I think, although don't quote me, I think that's already been put in the kitty. But with what's happened now at the federal level, with a lot of those dollars being, pulled back or put on hold, I don't know where things stand. So I want to make sure that we get you in line as quickly as possible. We can't do that until construction actually starts. So that's one consideration we have, to make sure that we're going to get Berry in line already. We want to make sure Bedford gets in line as well for the money that, you should have coming to your community. So we're looking forward to the public hearing. If there's anything you need or want us to do, we want to be as open, or, I think sending the questions through you is the preferred option, as opposed to engaging in a big conversation with the public. We'll answer whatever questions people have, but, it's an open book. We have to answer to our regulators. We have to answer to you. We answer to the county. We're working both with Berry and Calhoun road commissions, road department in Calhoun County, on the road plan. So that those conversations are already underway. We're also working with the drain commissioner in Berry and the water resource commissioner in Calhoun, of course, who's new. So Berry is kind of leading that effort right now, but all those plans for water runoff, drainage, all that impervious surface is being handled through Berry and then filtered through Calhoun as well. So we're happy with how things are going so far, and just looking for the weather to break. And we may actually, if we get an early spring, we could start construction early. Not here until we get all the approvals, but we will start in Berry just as quickly as the ground allows us to do so. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll close that at 7:28. Our next item on the agenda is Planning Commission member time. Claudia, would you like to start us off?
I don't have anything right now.
Barb?
Well, I'd just like to say, I think that the Spring Creek Solar Project review was probably the best review I've ever seen. It was so well laid out. I mean, I didn't care that much about all the wiring, but yeah, it was an excellent report. And I do have a question. Since our new president has made mention of this whole thing about fossil fuels and stopping the green projects and all, is that going to, in the next 4 years, somehow hurt what your plans are?
Yeah, if you want, Greg, you can. You're breaking the rules here, Barb.
Very astute question. So basically, just look at it this way. Everything we do is governed under a plan that we put forward that's approved by the Public Service Commission. So we are primarily regulated by the state, with a little bit quite a bit from the federal as well. So those are the plans we have to adhere to, from cost to what projects we're going to build and which ones we get approval for. Do we think that, whether it's wind or solar, there could be a slowdown? It's possible, but most of our projects are already in the pipeline. Keep in mind, these things take between 6 and 7 years from initial planning to the time that we start doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So these projects are all well underway. I think if you're looking at, and this is, I'm talking to a lot of my colleagues who either don't like or really don't like solar and wind. If you're about all the above energy strategy, all the above includes all the above. So, and the purpose of all the above, and that's what I worked on when I worked in Lansing, was We want an energy strategy for Michigan that has a little bit of everything. So that if oil prices go up, if gas prices go up, if tariffs from one country make it difficult for us to get solar panels or wind turbine blades, whatever it is, we're never as a country put in a position of having to worry about, now we're gonna have a real problem. So solar is definitely part of the future. Wind is part of the future. Could nuclear make a comeback? It's possible. Will gas be? Gas is definitely a part of our future. Coal, not so much. Coal, we'll have our last coal plant. We'll be one of the first utilities, if not the first in the nation, to be completely coal-free this year. So that decision's already been made, and there's nothing that the president or anybody else is gonna do, short of a huge energy, crisis where we need the energy. Would any of the plants remain open that are already slated to close? So, I don't see it affecting our plans in the short term or immediate term, but it's possible down the road. You could see them scale back a little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you.
Shirley?
The only thing I was thinking is brochures for the public meeting. You have brochures available so people can, I'm visual. So, and I think a lot of people are, so if they have something in their hand, concise, that would help with questions and answers kind of quickly.
We can certainly, work with
get some-
consumers to
Thank you.
get something,
Good. Yeah.
put together, not 500 pages good, but.
No.
But
But a little trifold,
Something that they can look at while. doing
right,
this.
right, a
Yeah.
little trifold, sorry, that's all, got it.
Kevin?
If I don't miss my guess, a lot of this green initiative is also state mandated, I believe. So what, it may
It
affect
is.
the federal a little bit, but also has to go with a state mandate
Right.
too. So, but other than that,
Stacy?
I agree with Mr. Sproul. I get it quite a bit at meetings, occasionally. My voice does not carry. We do need mics. We've been notified that speaker does not work well. If we do get a big crowd, we should anticipate moving to the fire bay. That would be an issue. We do have a cap on spending that the superintendent could spend for electronics. Otherwise, we could potentially do it via board resolution at the next meeting. The only other thing would be a request sent out to Wright, thanking them for their proposal. It was a solid proposal, and both of them were, but I'm happy with our choice, so that's it.
Okay. I just have a couple things. We're starting a new year under a big project, and there'll probably be other projects and, lots of meetings. So, everybody, being here and, going through the process is very important. I think that's what the residents want. To see us all up here and doing our thing. So I appreciate everybody's, attention to detail and, going through this and, dealing with what will probably be a couple of long meetings. It's been a while since we've had them, but, it's probably going to be coming back. I agree, again, with Stacy and Mr. Sproul. Maybe we can rent a PA system or something for that presentation or for the public hearing or both, or if we can't get something, in line. Cause I agree, we only have 3 people here tonight, but if we were to get, 10 or 15 in here or, 20 or so, like we had with the future land use map early on in the master plan, it is, even when everyone is quiet, it is difficult to hear. So we hear that and they're gonna work towards doing something on that. And it's as far as whether the federal government does X, Y, and Z or the state government does X, Y, and Z. At the end of the day, you have an applicant that owns land and they want to do something that we allow in our zoning ordinance. So
And we're just gonna move forward.
right. I mean, they have to check all the marks, but I mean,
Right.
it's, that's just kind of how that goes. So, All right, with that, I'll move to adjourn the meeting. At 7:35. Thank you for everybody for coming.